Hi, this is the Notes to Nostalgia podcast, and I'm your host, Livy Walters. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. This is wonderful. I'm pumped to cover this artist. Yeah. I recently on Instagram, on the Notes to Nostalgia Instagram, I put out what artist should I do next? And I looked at the responses and I saw Aretha Franklin from and a friend from high school. Her name is Nicole Stock. So Nicole, if you're listening, thank you for sending this. I saw that and I was like, yeah, I'm absolutely doing Aretha Franklin. There's no doubt in my mind. We have to do it this week. Made my job a lot easier because I had no clue on who I was doing as of Monday or Tuesday. So we will be covering Aretha Franklin today. I really thought this was going to be an easier artist to cover. Or not easier, but just I didn't really. Let's just say I learned a lot. So, we're covering Aretha Franklin, also known as the Queen of Soul. She is hands down one of the greatest singers in history. She was a trailblazer for jazz, blues, gospel, pop. She was a pianist and an excellent arranger, and especially gospel. Gospel, pop. I mean, she just really did it all. She was a trailblazer for the civil rights movement and also especially black women, and how she would just the way that she sung, it really resonated and connected to what was going on at the time. I mean, crazy how revolutionary she was, and for also just women in general. She had so many, she was an activist, and she was just really a force of nature. I loved doing this and researching about this podcast. I was able to just fall in love with her again. I really loved Aretha Franklin and just that 60s. And I would listen to a lot of Motown, which she's not a Motown artist, but just kind of, I loved the 60s sound, especially in middle school and high school. And when she passed away in 2018, sadly, this is what happens. And I said it last time, you just have all these artists. Any artist who dies, you have a resurgence of their music. So I was able to learn a lot about her when she passed. And I also went with my family, I think around that time, really close to around that time, to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the first time. So I went with my dad and my sister, and I was also just able to learn so much about who she was as a person. And so that was really wonderful and a really great memory. I also recently just became so enthralled with the way that she portrayed, as I said, emotion and how she was feeling in this forceful yet softer way. I feel like there was a lot of this the hardness that she was feeling. I don't know, she just portrayed it really well, and she has such a crazy range. Oh my gosh, I was listening to just songs I've never heard because she has actually a million albums. Not actually, but she has so many albums. I was looking at her discography. I was like, this doesn't stop. It actually, I was just scrolling, but I was able to just hear her vocals, and I go, how's she pulling that? How's she doing that? I've it is incredible. And I loved her covers. I mean, a ton of her songs were covers, and she made them easily more of a hit. And it was just, she's just wonderful. I was really excited to learn about her. And as always, I will be putting my Sorry, I'm lost my space. Jeez, I will be putting my references in the description so that if you want to do your own digging, and I beg you, she has done so much. I have no clue how she fit so much in her lifetime. I was like, oh, this is a year. She probably did a few things. She probably released an album or two. No, no, no. I was really off. She would do, she did so much. So I will be missing a lot of things because this could be a 5-hour podcast. So yeah. So go do your own digging research. I also highly recommend watching the biopic Respect. This was really great. I knew that she had a biopic, but I didn't really remember until a few days ago. And I go, I need to watch that. I have to watch that if I'm doing Aretha Franklin. And Jennifer Hudson was Aretha Franklin. She was the actress, and she did such a great job. And I think those were all of her own vocals. So Jennifer Hudson is insane to begin with, but her doing Aretha was just a no-brainer for this. And I think it lined up decently well with her life. I think there's a few timeline issues, but also I think where they moved it around, it made sense. So anyway, so yeah. Now, also, I would love, please, please, please share any memories that you have with listening to Aretha Franklin, family members who love Aretha Franklin. Those are just always so wonderful to learn about. So put them in the comments. This is going to be on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. So yeah, here we go. Shall we do it? Okay, let's do it. From the beginning. She was born on March 25th, 1942, in Memphis, Tennessee. Her mother was Barbara Franklin, and her father was Reverend C.L. Franklin. Her siblings were 2 sisters, Irma and Caroline, and she had a brother, Cecil. Her sisters and her whole family would really support her and help manage her in certain ways, but her sisters became actually her backup singers and would help her dream up these famous harmonies and the harmonies that are just absolutely a dream. They're so wonderfully crafted. So that's just a little side note. Her father was a Baptist minister, and that also had gospel music connections. And the family would move to Buffalo briefly before settling in Detroit, Michigan. So she was in Detroit, Michigan. When I say that her father had gospel music connections, unreal. I will name drop some names and you'll be shocked. So she grew up around gospel music because of her father, and in the church, she heard gospel music, and she just grew up right in the middle of it. So, like I said, her father had connections, so she would grow up with gospel artists like Clara Ward that are just also revolutionary in themselves, and is it okay? I don't want to mess this up. Mahalia Jackson, gospel singer. So she just grew up around them. After her 10th birthday, her mother actually unexpectedly passed away, and Mahalia and Clara would look after her and her siblings. So she just was immersed in that. She would have musicians like Nat King Cole and Art Tatum would just visit her childhood home from time to time because of her father. Crazy. And you can see this in the biopic. I will be kind of talking about the biopic a lot. So, but you can see that she's like walking in the first 5-10 minutes, and she's like, "Hey, Uncle Duke Ellington. Oh, hey." Like, she just name drop names. She'd be, "Oh, hey, Uncle Sam Cooke." Guys. So it was just really, really crazy. So she also, Smokey Robinson was a childhood friend of hers. If you know any of these artists, you know I'll be freaking out. Why I am freaking out. So that's just how she just grew up in that. So, and when she was 12, she would go with her father and his gospel caravan tours. So she'd go around, and that started, I'm pretty sure, when she was 12. She would um, go she did the gospel caravan tours throughout her life, but she would pretty much go all over the country singing and playing the piano, and she would just do this for the civil rights movement. Also, this was a pretty sad fact, actually, that I learned. She also, at 12, she would have her first son, and her second son when she was 14. So the movie kind of also portrays that really well. And it's just sad. It's just so sad. And she just did have a really hard life. She had really hard times in her life. And you can hear that in her singing. And the biopic did a really great job with that, I will say. Um, yeah, so she from a very young age, she'd be singing and touring and doing all these things, and also just a hard life, you know. So going on to 1956, she would sign with JVB Records, which was a gospel and R&B record label, and she released she released her first single, Never Grow Old, and album Songs of Faith at age 14. So this is a gospel album. And she does not sound like a 14-year-old in it. She sounds like an adult. It's crazy, her voice. And that single, and I'm pretty sure the album as well, if not just the single, was recorded in her father's church, New Bethel Baptist Church. And that is, if I'm not mistaken, still in Detroit. So really kind of cool. Um, so moving forward a little bit to 1960, where was I? 1960, she decided that she wanted to go more of a pop route with her music. She was inspired by Sam Cooke, one of her friends, who was a family friend, crazy, when she was also 12. So, and you would see her cover some songs in some of his songs in her lifetime, and that was always kind of really cool to hear. Um, and this, so 1960 was also the same year she signed with Columbia Records. This is the time when she would start experimenting and mixing genres like pop, jazz, blues, R&B, and she would try to weave in these gospel roots. But she was really just experimenting with everything at this time. So that's kind of then. That was in 1960. She married Ted White in 1961. So Ted White, he was her manager, and quote, co-wrote kind of co-wrote some of her songs. Not really. I think he kind of barely was in that. And Ted White was shady. He was super shady. Her father, and this is also in the movie, in the biopic, just did not agree, did not want her to be with him. And the music industry and Motown, just music industry, Motown, they called him, quote, a straight up pimp. That's what they called him. That's what he was. And he kind of, that's who he is, I should say. But from 1961 to 1965, she released 7 studio albums with Columbia Records. And I think about artists now who, I was talking to my friend Gloria about this today, and just how artists now, they take years and they make one album. And I think sometimes recently, maybe, that there's more songs on the album. And Aretha did a lot of covers, so I think she was also able to move that a little faster. Maybe. But it's just so crazy how music changes, and it's unheard of. It is absolutely unheard of for an artist, I feel like, now to release even 2 albums in the same year. It's crazy. So she released, just in a matter of years, a few years, she released 7 studio albums with Columbia Records. And these records did not hit the mainstream. They just didn't, they weren't making their way in through. If you listen to these albums, they are kind of a variant of jazz. So she's doing jazz, but they're kind of doo-woppy, or there's a touch of R&B, or maybe a little show tune, but it's jazz pretty much. So I feel like she's leaning away from her gospel roots in a way. Yeah, so she's experimenting with all these things, but is trying to lean away from gospel. And she stayed with Columbia Records for 6 years. And she's just not really getting it. We're missing the mark. She's missing the mark in places. But in 1966, this is where we ramp up. This is where it all changes. This is the year that she decided to leave Columbia Records. She's not really finding the sound that she wants. So this is when she also met Jerry Wexler. Jerry Wexler is a producer, or was a producer, at Atlantic Records. He worked with artists like Ray Charles, Bob Dylan, The Drifters, Wilson Pickett, Otis Redding, and that's literally just to name a few. He worked with so many amazing, talented artists, and if you don't know about any of those artists, look into them. They're amazing. So Wexler saw her talent and what she had to offer, and she also knew that she needed a change. She just was not, and as I was saying, it was not mainstream. She needed something different. So Wexler saw her talent, and she saw what she had to offer, and wanted to embrace her soul and gospel roots. He saw that that was something that she was incredibly talented at and wanted to use that. So he would also advocate for her and and the musical genius that she was. And this was really the start of a really wonderful musical partnership between Wexler and Aretha. So Aretha signs with Atlantic Records, and this was where things start to move. majorly. So, in January 1967, Aretha went to Muscle Shoals, Alabama to record at Fame Studios. So, I'm going to kind of go off a little bit, but I had to add this in, of course. So, Muscle Shoals, Alabama, is insanely packed with history. History in general and musical history. So I remember Muscle Shoals and relearning about Aretha. I There was one day back years ago when I was like, "Do you just want to watch this documentary with me? It's about Muscle Shoals." I was like, "I don't know what that is, but sure, I'll watch it." We sat down and watched this documentary. It was actually a really beautiful day. It was such a nice day. I remember it very vividly. And we just watched this documentary. I don't actually think we finished it, but it I was amazed. I was stunned by the history behind everything. It was incredible. It was it's so cool. So I'm just going to kind of do a brief synopsis about Muscle Shoals. So, Native Americans first named the Tennessee River, quote singing river. So they first found this river in Tennessee, or they first named it the Singing River. And so you have the indigenous people that are going through this river because of the musical sounds that it would make. And then you have also years later enslaved people. So they brought spirituals and work songs, and they would sing that when they were working and when they were brought to work in Alabama. And then, I didn't know about this, there was a Scottish Irish immigrant community type thing that also settled, and this was like Celtic folk music that also settled around Alabama then. So you just have like a lot of different cultures and different reasons, of course, for why they're settling in Alabama. And it's right around the Tennessee River Muscle Shoals area. And this is such a unique array of people. And this was in the late 19th century. So, and from then, you see these, and they cover this more in the documentary. But you see these sounds of gospel, the harp singing, and this call and response style that is brought up in Muscle Shoals. And so there's this really amazing history and fascinating history that, and then you later see in the 20th century that these artists it's like literally on the middle of nowhere. And there's two record studios, and they called it like they wanted to find what's it called? I put it down here. The Muscle Shoals sound. And it was kind of known to make you sing and find your voice. So later in the 20th century, you see artists like Rolling Stones, Etta James, Leonard Skinner, Rod Stewart, Wilson Pickett, Cher, again Bob Dylan, and Paul Simon. So that's just to name a few. There's tons, and I didn't even add Aretha. So this is that's just kind of a brief synopsis of what Muscle Shoals is. If you would like to watch the documentary, it is fascinating. So definitely do that. It's the 2013 documentary, and I think it's just called Muscle Shoals. I also put a link for you can find on YouTube. in the description. So there she recorded, so at Fame Records, she recorded her first breakout hit, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. And she also recorded parts of Do Right Woman, Do Right Man. So, like I said, artists would come to Muscle Shoals to find this quote, Muscle Shoals sound. And that's what Wexler wanted for Aretha. He's like, I have the thing, I have the band, I have the everything. So that was really cool to learn about again. So part of why I said a second ago um, that she only did part of Do Right Woman and Do Right Man was because of her husband, Ted White. He the session got cut short because Ted White exchanged some words with the trumpet player, Ken Laxton, and also got into a fight with the studio owner. So Aretha actually had to leave and finish the rest of the song in New York. And that's where she was also singing as well. So she's kind of going back to New York. And since Aretha couldn't go to Muscle Shoals, Wexler was like, I'll just bring the musicians to you. I'll just bring the musicians to you. And this is something I also learned from the documentary was that these musicians were called, quote, swampers. And they were just like that kind of the house band at in Muscle Shoals for Fame Records, and I'm not sure about the other record company, but recording studio, I mean. And they're white. If you listen to her music, I had no clue, and I was kind of shocked because I was like, this is such soulful music. What? How are they doing that? How's he pulling that? How's he doing that? And they were white, so they had this sound, and they would travel with they did a lot of backing tracks for a lot of these artists. So and that was her band. She would be like, nope, these guys have it. These guys are my guys. We're doing this. So that was her band for multiple albums. The song I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You became her first top 10 single. That was her first top 10 single. Then, 3 months later, still in 1967, she released her own cover of Otis Redding's song Respect in her own style. So, she recorded this song, I Never Loved a Man I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. Kind of was trying to move away. It was like, I can't go back to Muscle Shoals, figuring it out. And she would listen to Respect by Otis Redding. I did not know this was an Otis Redding song. I did not know that. And so when I listened to the Otis Redding, I was like, this is good. This is a good version. But Aretha's is better. I mean, you hear Respect and you go, oh yeah, Aretha Franklin. Obviously. So I listened to it and I really could appreciate and I understood after hearing both versions why Aretha's female take was so important and why it became so popular. It was this anthem of the civil rights movement and for women and demanding equality. So it's just multiple avenues of justice that she was able to carry out through these songs. And this is where she really starts. And I loved seeing how it unfolded in the biopic. I think they did a wonderful job of that. It really helped me grasp the Respect, just the song, So it's so well done. So that's kind of that. I mean, and that it was just really cool to see that unfold, as I said. So she released the album. I am saying the song title about a million times. She released the album, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. And this is what broke her into the mainstream. She was able, so Respect is on that album. She was able to bridge her soul and gospel roots and mix it kind of with this R&B pop. It was a wonderful genius mixture of these musical genres. And this showed the world that she was a superstar and that she could not only sing, but she was a master at piano and she could find little pieces and how to arrange it and what sound she wanted and just was able to walk in and do it. I am not able to break down entirely every one of her records. I felt like this was one that I needed to break down. So she so this album you cannot help but get sucked into. It is such a wonderful album and it's short. It's not too long. It's not too I feel like a lot of albums now I'm like expecting like 13. I mean, Ray recently had 17. I think Noah Khan had 20 songs on the album, which is great, but I just thought it was longer. And so it's shorter than I thought. So it's so wonderful to hear these songs and the way that she arranges her sisters and her background vocalists and the piano and she just adds this powerful work of art on top of this. So it's just it as I was listening to the album, I'm just amazed. I'm like, how are you mixing all these feelings and genres and emotions together and doing it flawlessly? So so yeah, and throughout her life, she also during this time, she is making albums and she's traveling with Martin Luther King Jr. She's joining protests. She helps fund many advocacy groups for many different cultural backgrounds. And she was so influential that she was monitored by the FBI. So she's like doing all these incredible albums and making these hits and touring. And then she's also touring and with Martin Luther King and doing protests and doing this and help leading charge of the civil rights movement. It's just it's crazy. And I'm like, man, I need to hop on it. I need to do something. I need to do more. We need to do more, people. So she just, and also in this album, she connects to the human experience so well. And the civil rights movement and what people are experiencing during that time. It is an incredible mix of hard hitting protest songs, slow, heart aching ballads, and then upbeat soul sounds. It's wonderful. So this album reached number 2 on the Billboard Top 200. So it got to number 2 and number 1 on the R&B charts. And this is one of the albums that I'm like, oh yeah, this is Aretha Franklin. I know this album. So definitely listen to this album front to back. Absolutely. And I always kind of say that with most albums. But here are kind of my, in no particular order, my favorites. And there's a few. You have Respect. Guys, if we don't know that song, hop on that. Do that. Number 2 is Do Right Woman, Do Right Man. Such a great song. I love that song. I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. I think that's the last time me saying that album title and the song title, but great song. Soul Serenade, I didn't know this song, and I love this song. Save Me, I love the grit behind that song and how that's done, and Good Times. That's just a good one. And I also love the cover of Change is Gonna Come. That is originally, and Sam Cooke made it famous. But that's a cover of Sam Cooke's song, and I love how she at the beginning she's like, I'm singing this because, and mentioning that Sam Cooke is an old friend of hers. So that was just kind of incredible. She 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 releases this album. She's moving forward. So what year was that? That was, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out what year this is again. 66, 67? Yes. 66 and 67 was all that. Then in 68, this was this is one of the years that I was doing research. I was like, okay, I'm done with 68. No, no, no. Haven't even hit it yet. 68 was a gigantic year for the Queen of Soul, and also a really devastating year in general. Um, if you know anything that happened during that year, really hard year. So I will get into that. But I'm really going to break down these songs since 68 is such a big year. I am trying to break this down a little differently than I usually do. I'm not able to talk about every single album, and I guess I can't break down every single little detail because I don't have time. But so, starting at 68, she released the album Lady Soul on January 22nd. This this album was incredible. She had major hits like Chain of Fools, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, Ain't No Way, and she's just cranking hits left and right. Let me actually see what what is this album? Sorry guys. She just is cranking out these songs, these albums, and I also want to add a few of the songs that I love from this album. Sorry, I'm looking up this album. So Chain of Fools, wonderfully great song. Sweet Baby, Sweet Baby, Since You've Been Gone is so good. Groovin' is really good. Ain't No Way. Yeah. So this is just a really wonderful album. People Get Ready is a great one. So sorry, I didn't actually add a few of the songs I wanted to mention. But these are songs she's just crushing. She's crushing. And I mean, Chain of Fools is so good. You hear that opening, you're like, okay, yeah. You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. I actually remember that song because of Ariana Grande. Yeah. Cause what was the song that she did? Dangerous Woman. Right? Right? Yeah. People remember around that time when it came out, people were like, oh yeah, this sounds like this is a version of Natural Woman. It sounds like that. Um, so I don't know. And then Ain't No Way is just really great. It's just a great album. Wonderful album. Listen to it. Okay. In February, same year, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. presents her with an award from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Detroit. And this was February 16th. And this is when Martin Luther King Jr. declares February 16th, national, well, I guess in Detroit but it's a national holiday. That is Aretha Franklin Day. So remember, a few days after Valentine's Day, the 16th, that's Aretha Franklin Day. On February 29th, same month, Aretha won 2 Grammy Awards at the 10th annual Grammys. It's crazy. I don't even know what number are we on now? I have no clue. But she won 2 Grammys. These her first 2 Grammys? No, they're not. She won 2 Grammys at the 10th annual Grammy Awards. On April 9th, that was Martin Luther King Jr.'s funeral. She sang Precious Lord, Take My Hand. And this is a song that is known to be one of his favorites. And the way that she did this brings you to tears. It is such heartbreakingly powerful song. Definitely go look. I think I put a link for that in YouTube. I'm not for sure. But watch the biopic on that. That was so well done and well represented. I really, really, yeah, it was just such a, yeah. That's all I have to say. It was the way she did it was really well and done very tastefully, as she would, obviously. So on May 7th, she sang at the Olympia in Paris. This in the movie, these dates were off. I mean, they met 1968 was crazy, but they like moved these dates around. So I'm trying to set the record straight. So we're moving on to May 7th. Singing in Paris, she sings her hit song Think, and this is a single at the time, and this is a really very famous performance. The way that Tom White reacted to it, and she's singing Think, and the passion behind it is absolutely reflected of what she was experiencing, the heartache, the pain, the abuse that she was getting from Tom White and everything going on there. So this was a great performance by her, and this performance and the songs that she sang later became a live album of hers later that year. So that's 3 records, I guess. Then she released Aretha Now on June 14th. This album is crazy. I mean, you have songs like you have Say a Little Prayer, which Glee. That's a song from Glee, guys. Guys, that's a song from Glee. Probably the most popular song from Glee, actually. One of them, for sure. So, that Say a Little Prayer, You Send Me, and of course, Think are on that. You Send Me is also, if I'm not mistaken, a cover of Sam Cooke. And just so wonderfully done. I loved it. This song, that album is a front to back listen, for sure. June 28th. So we're now in June. This was Aretha. So Aretha was featured on Time magazine. She was named the Sound of Soul. This was rare. You wouldn't have a Black woman on the front of Time magazine. So it was breaking records, and not records, but breaking racial barriers there. Thank you. And this also highlighted the high point of her career but also the abuse and with her husband, Ted White, at the time. I've said Ted White a lot. Yeah, so this was rare and something that hadn't been done and people were asking about. And it was just really big and it really highlighted a lot of what she's experiencing. And 68, I mean, this is the high point of her career. So, from 1969 to 71, we're moving forward. That was 68. All of that happened in 68. So we're moving on to 1969 and 71. She released 6 albums. And this is the time that she really wanted to take over. She was like taking over her career. She was trying to move forward. She was touring nonstop. She got divorced from Tom White, who was her manager and husband, which I will say for the 15th time. She was also arrested for disorderly conduct. And then the next year in 70, this is kind of bouncing all over the place, but the next year in 70, she would help pay for Angela Davis, a civil rights activist as well. So she would pay for her bail after she was arrested in 70. So you just see, a lot of things are happening. She had her 4th son. And during all this, because of the divorce, touring, everything, it's kind of starting to add up. And during this time, she was known to have a pretty heavy drinking problem. And this was just a really hard point in her life. And there was a lot of pressure on her. So during this time, I mean, still she's making hits like Don't Play That Song, You Lied, Daydreaming, Spanish Harlem, and Rock Steady. So all these songs, she's still cranking out hits, but it's just a lot. And it's really building, it's just building until 72. So this 72 is where she's like, okay. Still making albums, still making hits. She goes, okay, Lord, like I need to go back to my roots. I need to come back. I need to come back home, kind of. So in 1972, she recorded the live album Amazing Grace at the New Temple Baptist Church in Los Angeles. So this was performed on January 13th. And there was a camera crew there. They recorded this, and this would later become, much later in her life, a documentary. So this was her first album that was completely gospel in years. And if you listen to this album, it's so stunning. You can hear and feel just the church. I grew up in the church. I've had my struggles with the church as well, but I just was like, man, the Lord really just led her back to that. And this album is something that was maybe like, okay, I'm doing this album. I don't know. She didn't really know if it was going to be a hit, how people would respond to this. But this is what she did. And you can just feel the love through this album. She wanted to come back to church, and she did. She came back to church. She showed this raw, unpolished, Aretha Franklin. It's her singing these songs, but the church and the choir is involved. It is unfiltered, just how church should be, you know? This album was record breaking. It kind of set her in a new position, and this album became her most successful album. So she's done Respect and Think and done all these crazy albums that you know today, but this is her most successful album. And it is the best selling live gospel album in history. She's like, I'm going back to my roots, and that she does it best. I mean, I listened to Amazing Grace actually today before I recorded this podcast. And it's a 10-minute song. And I love it. I love that it's a 10-minute song. It is it's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's so raw. And she also won a Grammy for Best Soul Gospel for Performance for this song, for this album, I mean. So she had all this heartbreak and through her life, and I also think the biopic did a really great job of portraying that. She just it's building up, and she's like, okay, I need to go back. I need to go back. I need to. So, and something that she was kind of like, I don't know how people will receive this. Everyone, every race, how will people receive this? Very, very well. So that's kind of that. I am also moving. I'm going to briefly touch on very big things in her life that she's accomplished. So later in her life, this is kind of, I'm giving you dates, giving you years and what she did. Kind of like facts. Later in her life, so we're skipping forward to 1987. She becomes the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I love. Anytime I go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, haven't been back in a while because I kind of have qualms with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we won't get into that. But she became the first woman. April of that same year, so 67. Whoa, not 67, 87. I'm not going to do it. 87. April of that year, she records the song I Knew You Were Waiting on Me with George Michael. So George Michael's from Wham. Also, I love George Michael. And that song hit number 1 on the pop charts. That was a gigantic song. I love that song. George Michael also speaks very highly of Aretha in that song and in general around that time. So, and then we're skipping to 1994. She becomes the youngest person to be chosen for the Kennedy Honors, and that was at 52. So she's the youngest person at the Kennedy Honors. If you've probably seen the Kennedy Honors, if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's so cool. She also sings, I don't really know what date this is, but speaking of the Kennedy Honors, she sings for Carole King. Please go back, please watch that. Carole King is a wonderful, wonderful female artist, and she's up top, like Carole King is up top, and Aretha's just singing. And Carole King is losing her mind. She's sobbing. She's like flabbergasted that Aretha Franklin is singing for her. Crazy. It's so cool. It's really cool to watch. So yes, that was 94. 1999, she receives the National Medal of Arts and the Humanitarians Award. In 2005, she's presented with Medal of Freedom. Just, I mean, people do one of these in their whole entire life. In 2008, she wins her 18th Grammy and last Grammy for the best gospel performance with the song Never Gonna Break My Faith. And then in 2014, her cover of Rolling in the Deep by Adele reaches number 47 on the R&B charts. She is the first woman to reach the milestone of she's the first woman to reach the milestone of having 100 charting singles. So Rolling in the Deep was her 100th charting single. That's crazy. She's had 100 in the top 100 in charting. Oh my gosh, that's really crazy. That also, the way that I set that up didn't really make any sense. Yes, I'm just going to leave it at 100 charting singles. Great. So she passed away in 2018, and that this is Aretha Franklin is a force to be reckoned with. She is so influential. She's so powerful, and the way that she wanted social change and the way that she went about it, also such hardships in her life. It's just really cool and crazy. I mean, you could really go into a lot more about her. There's so much more, and I had to really narrow it down. So please, please go do your own digging. Watch the biopics. Watch her performances. Watch how she spoke. It's just really inspiring and really wonderful. And it was such a great honor and such a fun experience for me to learn about her again and to really understand her as well. So, yeah, that's Aretha Franklin. That's kind of that was so many dates I just threw at you. She's somebody that I'm still making memories with. I need to have more memories with her music. So, that's what I'm doing. And I hope you'll do the same. I hope you'll share this. Wow, I'm actually shocked that I got this done in under an hour. I had to kind of fly first for some things, but again, do your own research, digging. I've said, follow the Notes Nostalgia Instagram. I would love to see comments, and please let me know who you want to see next. I'll hopefully be putting out a question of like, what artist do you want to hear next soon? So let me know what you want to hear next. I want your input. Also, I'm going to be putting these out hopefully every Saturday. As of right now, every Saturday. And I hope you'll be back next week. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for taking time out of your day. This has been really great. Yeah. So have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week. Bye.